My name is Claire Carter. I'm 30 years old, and everything I thought I knew about my family shattered at what should have been a joyful night. Imagine this: a warm dining room, wine glasses raised, laughter rolling across the table, and then silence, razor sharp. My dad leaned forward, his eyes locked on me, and asked the one question that detonated my world. Claire, the $200,000 I gave you, what did you do with it? The room spun. $200,000? My chest tightened, my fork slipped from my hand, crashing against the plate. What do you mean? I whispered, my voice cracking. Across the table, my sister's face drained white, her hands trembling violently. The laughter died instantly. The air grew heavy, suffocating, like everyone was holding their breath. That money wasn't pocket change. It was my father's investment in my dream, the chance to open my own fashion boutique, a future I'd been building toward for years. And yet, in that moment, I knew someone had betrayed me, and betrayal from family cuts deeper than any enemy's blade. For years, I'd been clawing my way through Chicago, working as a marketing coordinator at a mid-sized fashion brand. Stress, deadlines, clients who never stopped demanding more. I told myself it was all leading somewhere. My dream? To launch my own boutique, a place filled with my designs, my vision, my independence. Then, out of nowhere, my dad wired me $800,000, no strings attached. "This is your shot, Claire," he told me. His faith in me was everything. I'd been saving, planning, sketching floor plans for storefronts in Salt Lake City, my hometown, where I wanted to start fresh. For the first time in my life, the impossible felt real. Until that phone call. A few days ago, my sister rang, her voice sharp, rehearsed, almost unnatural. "Dad's not feeling great," she said quickly. "His birthday party's canceled. No need to come home." Something inside me recoiled. Dad's 60th birthday? Canceled? He'd been planning it for months, obsessing over menus, playlists, guest lists. It was his pride, his milestone. And suddenly, I wasn't invited. I pushed back. "Is he okay? Should I call him?" But she dismissed me. "It's just a cold, don't worry." Her words felt rushed, like she couldn't hang up fast enough, but my gut wouldn't let it go. Something wasn't adding up. Growing up, my sister and I were never close. She was all flash: designer clothes, luxury trips, exotic vacations. While I worked, saved, dreamed. She'd take my things without asking, one-up my stories with her bigger, better versions. But this call wasn't just her usual arrogance. This was deception. I scrolled through my phone later. No texts, no calls from Dad. Strange. He was always the one to check in, to push me, to remind me not to give up. If he were sick, he would have told me. He always told me. My mind wouldn't stop racing. Was my sister hiding something? Something more sinister than a canceled party? I logged into my bank account, double-checking the money Dad had given me. My savings were intact, but then something caught my eye. A transfer notification, small, buried, vague. A reference number I didn't recognize. My heart pounded. What was this? Who had moved money without me noticing? I called Aunt Ellen, the sharpest woman I know, the one person who never sugar-coated family drama. "Canceled?" she scoffed when I told her. "I was at their house yesterday." "Your dad was fine." Excited, actually, planning the menu. My stomach dropped. She continued, voice lower now. "And by the way, I saw your sister with some new designer bags last week. Expensive ones. She's been spending a lot, Claire. More than usual." The pieces started snapping together, jagged and terrifying. Designer bags. Sudden lies. A canceled party that wasn't canceled. My sister's pale, trembling hands at dinner. On the plane to Salt Lake City, I couldn't breathe. My grip tightened on the gift box in my lap, a sleek, engraved watch I'd bought for Dad. My heart should have been full of excitement to surprise him, but all I felt was dread. Every word my sister had spoken replayed in my head, echoing like a warning. Something was waiting for me at home, and I wasn't sure I wanted to know what it was. Her lie about the party wasn't some harmless white lie. It was the spark to an explosion I never saw coming. When I landed in Salt Lake City, my pulse wouldn't stop hammering. I drove straight to my dad's house in Sugar House, the engraved watchbox clenched in my bag like a lifeline. But as soon as I turned the corner, my breath caught. Cars jammed the street, every window glowing with warm light. Voices spilled out into the night. The party wasn't canceled. My sister had lied. And the reason why was waiting inside. The moment I stepped through the door, the buzz hit me. Music, laughter, glasses clinking. Dad was by the dining table laughing, his face glowing with health. No sickness, no just a cold. Mom flitted in and out of the kitchen, arranging plates, while my sister glided around on her designer heels, a perfect hostess. Aunt Ellen spotted me from across the room and gave a quick wave. I forced a smile, but my chest was tightening. Why had they tried to keep me away? I pushed through the crowd, gift box in hand. "Happy birthday," I said, handing Dad the watch. His eyes lit up and he pulled me into a hug. "You didn't have to fly in," he said warmly. But as I stepped back, my gaze snagged on my sister. For a fraction of a second, her eyes widened in shock before she turned away, too quickly. Mom saw it too. Her hand fumbled with a napkin, eyes dropping to the floor. Something was wrong. Everywhere I looked, the two of them traded glances, sharp and nervous. Their movements weren't natural, they were jittery, rehearsed. As the evening rolled on, I stuck close to Aunt Ellen by the dessert table. She sipped her wine, calm as ever. "I thought this was canceled," I muttered. She raised a brow. "Canceled? Your dad's been planning this for weeks, but your sister, she told everyone you weren't coming." My stomach dropped. It wasn't just a lie about the party. It was a lie about me. I pressed her quietly. Had she noticed anything off? Aunt Ellen leaned in, her voice hushed. "Your sister's been on a spree lately. Bags, jewelry, even bragging about Paris last month. Thousands, Claire. I saw her drop cash like it was nothing Paris. Thousands." I flashed back to her rushed call, the way she pushed me to stay in Chicago. She'd always flaunted luxury, but this was reckless. Where was she getting that kind of money? I turned, eyes locking on my sister, laughing too loudly with a guest, her diamond earrings catching the light. Mom stood nearby, smiling tightly, twisting her bracelet again and again. Aunt Ellen's earlier words clawed at me. "She's been acting cagey, and your mom's in on it." I helped clear plates, but the tension thickened. As my sister brushed past me, her perfume stung, her voice sharp. "Didn't think you'd actually show up. Thought Chicago kept you busy?" She didn't meet my eyes. Her heels clicked away faster than before. Mom avoided me entirely, fussing with the cake. The wall between us was undeniable, secretive, deliberate. Aunt Ellen tugged at my arm, her eyes hard. "Something's going on, Claire." "Bigger than you think." My hands shook as I steadied myself against the table. The lies, the money, the sideways glances, everything pointed to something hidden, something dangerous. The music swelled, chatter rising as the cake was carried in. Guests crowded the dining table, their voices a blur. Dad stood at the head, beaming, ready to slice the first piece. For a moment, his laughter eased my panic. I raised my glass, preparing to toast. But then he turned to me, his expression shifting, eyes narrowing, piercing through the noise. And what he said next froze the blood in my veins. "Claire," my dad said, his voice low but slicing through the chatter like a blade. "The $200,000 I sent you. What did you do with it?" My blood ran cold. $200,000? My heart slammed against my ribs as my glass slipped in my hand, nearly spilling. "What do you mean?" I stammered, barely a whisper. The entire room froze. Guests went silent, all eyes drilling into me. Dad's gaze stayed steady, waiting, demanding. My throat tightened. I had no idea what he was talking about. The $800,000 for my boutique was real, but another $200,000. When? How? Before I could speak again, Samantha jumped in, her voice shrill and shaky. "She probably just forgot, Dad." She forced a laugh, twisting her hands. "You know how busy she is in Chicago." Her face had drained of color, her eyes flicking nervously toward me. Suspicion burned in my chest. Why was she covering for me so fast? Dad's hand shot up, cutting her off. "Samantha, I'm asking Claire," he said sharply. The words sliced the air, leaving everyone rigid. Guests shifted uncomfortably, their whispers dying out. Mom, standing beside Samantha, clutched her wine glass so tightly her knuckles turned white. Aunt Ellen, watching from the wall, didn't move, her narrowed eyes almost as if she'd been expecting this storm. My voice cracked as I forced the words out. "Dad, I don't know about any $200,000. I got the $800,000 for my boutique, yes, and I've been planning to use it. But this other money, I never saw it." The words fell heavy, each one hanging in the silence like a ticking clock. Samantha's eyes widened. She opened her mouth to speak, but Dad's glare shut her down instantly. He turned back to me, his voice low, deliberate. "Claire, I sent $200,000 to you and your sister separately. It was apart from the boutique money, a gift for your futures, no strings attached." His eyes cut to Samantha, then back to me. "You're saying you didn't know?" My stomach dropped like a stone. I shook my head, hands trembling. "No, Dad. I swear, I never got it. I didn't even know it existed." My voice rose, thick with anger and shock. How could $200,000 vanish from my life without me knowing? Across the table, Samantha clutched the edge so hard her fingers trembled. Her face was ashen, her lips pressed shut, refusing to meet my eyes. Finally, she blurted, her voice too fast, too defensive. "Maybe there was a mix-up at the bank or something. You know how these things happen." But her excuse rang hollow. Mom moved closer, placing a hand on Samantha's arm as if to anchor her, but said nothing. Her silence screamed louder than any words. Dad's jaw tightened, his eyes blazing with something I'd never seen in him before. Betrayal, fury, heartbreak, all twisted together. "Enough!" he snapped, his voice like steel. His eyes locked on me. "Claire, you're absolutely sure?" I nodded, throat too tight to speak. The room grew suffocating. Guests held their breath as if the walls themselves were closing in, watching this family fracture in real time. Dad took a step forward, his tone hard, echoing in the silence. "Let me make this clear," he said, his eyes burning into both me and Samantha. "I sent $200,000 to each of you. It was meant for your futures. I trusted you." The words hit like hammers. My mind spun. A second fortune, money I never even knew existed. And then his gaze shifted, locking on Samantha. His voice sharpened. "And you, Samantha, what did you do with yours?" The color drained from her face. She darted a look toward Mom, whose hands were clasped so tightly her fingers had turned white. The room leaned in, hanging on her silence. Finally, Samantha's lips parted, her voice breaking. I used it for investments, Dad. You know, smart choices." Samantha's voice cracked. Her eyes glued to the floor like she was hiding from a firing squad. Dad's face darkened, thunder rolling behind his eyes. "Investments?" he repeated, his tone sharp enough to cut glass. "Then why the hell did Aunt Ellen tell me you've been burning cash on designer handbags and European vacations?" My heart seized. I whipped my head toward Aunt Ellen, who gave the slightest nod, her expression grim and unflinching. Samantha's shoulders buckled, and she shot a desperate look at Mom, who stepped forward, her voice quivering. "Daniel, let's not do this here," Mom pleaded, her hands trembling. "We can talk privately, please." But Dad didn't even hear her. His eyes were locked on me, like I was the only person left in the room. "Claire, you're telling me you never got your share?" I swallowed hard, my voice barely steady. "I swear, Dad, I didn't know about any of this. I thought the $800,000 was everything you gave me." His jaw tightened until it looked like stone. Then he turned on Samantha, his voice rising, booming through the silence. "Then where's Claire's money, Samantha? Because it sure as hell didn't end up with her." Samantha's face collapsed. Her hands twisted her necklace until her knuckles whitened. "It was a mistake," she whispered, barely audible. I thought it was mine, Dad. I didn't mean—" Her excuse died in her throat as Dad slammed his palm on the table. The glasses rattled like gunfire. "You thought?" he roared. "You stole $200,000 that wasn't yours, and you wasted it on what? Handbags? Vacations?" The rage boiled inside me, my fists clenched until my nails cut into my palms. All those years of Samantha's flashy lifestyle, her smug smirks, she had been living large on my future. I turned to Mom, desperate for her to defend me, but she just stood there, eyes lowered, silence wrapping her like a shield. "Mom," I choked out, "did you know?" She flinched but said nothing, her lips pressed into a tight, guilty line. Dad's voice dropped, calm and dangerous, the kind of quiet that comes before an explosion. "Patricia, you were in on this too, weren't you?" Her head snapped up, eyes wide with panic. "Daniel, I didn't mean for it to spiral this far," she stammered. "Samantha needed help, and I thought we could fix it before anyone noticed." Fix it? My blood ran hot. They had stolen my future and wrapped it in excuses. Dad pulled his phone from his pocket, his hands steady even as fury blazed in his eyes. "I'm calling the police," he said flatly. Samantha gasped, stumbling backward. "Dad, no, please," she begged, tears streaming down her face. Mom grabbed his arm, frantic. "Daniel, stop! We're family!" He shook her off with ice in his voice. "Family doesn't gut each other's dreams. You knew what you were doing. Both of you, and you're done." He dialed without hesitation, his voice steady as steel. "This is Daniel Carter. I need officers at my home in Sugar House. It's theft, $200,000 around us." Guests froze like statues. Some slipped quietly toward the door, unwilling to watch the implosion of a family. Dad turned back to Mom and Samantha, his words cutting like frostbite. "You're out of my life. Both of you. And you'll pay back every cent, starting now." I could barely breathe as the truth crashed over me. My family wasn't just cracking, it was shattering. The police station later was a cold, unforgiving place, its fluorescent lights exposing every raw nerve. I sat rigid in the waiting area, hands clasped tight, replaying the chaos over and over. Dad stood like a soldier beside me, stone-faced. Aunt Ellen rifled through a thick folder of documents she'd brought. Down the hall, Samantha and Mom were in separate rooms being interrogated. The weight of betrayal pressed on my chest until I could barely draw breath. An officer approached, his badge glinting. "Miss Carter," he said firmly, "we have statements from your mother and sister. You'll want to hear this." He led us to a room with a one-way window. Inside, Samantha sat at a metal table, eyes swollen and red. Across the hall, Patricia sat hunched, her fingers twitching, her face pale with shame. My stomach churned. I wasn't ready, but I needed the truth. The officer began with Samantha. "She admitted to draining a joint account your father set up. It had $200,000 for each of you. She pulled your share a few weeks ago, believing it was hers." The words stabbed me like ice. Weeks ago? It explained everything. Her designer coats, the Milan trip flaunted online, the sudden flood of luxury. "She's already burned through most of it," the officer continued. "Plane tickets, hotels, clothes, maybe $10,000 left. That's all $10,000 out of 200. My throat closed, fury and grief knotting together. She hadn't just stolen money, she had stolen my dream. $200,000, money meant for my future, reduced to nothing but scraps. My chest tightened as I looked at Dad, his jaw rigid, his gaze burning through the glass at Samantha. "What about my mom?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, dreading the answer. The officer flipped through his notes, each page sounding like a hammer. Patricia admitted she knew. She gave Samantha access to the account, convinced they could put the money back before anyone noticed. Replace it? My fists clenched, fury rising until my nails dug deep into my palms. They had gambled away my future and lost. Dad's grip on the chair turned his knuckles bone white. They had no right, he muttered, his voice raw like it had been scraped against stone. Aunt Ellen stepped forward, snapping open her folder. "I've got proof," she said sharply, shoving a stack of papers into the officer's hands. "Receipts, thousands blown on handbags, jewelry, first-class tickets. I saw her at the mall myself last month. She was spending like she'd just won the lottery." The officer skimmed the papers, his expression darkening. "This matches her statement. She didn't hide it once she had access. Lavish purchases across the board." Through the glass, I stared at the receipts, disbelief twisting into rage. Chanel bags, a Rolex, a trip to Italy, all paid for with my money. Samantha sat slumped at the table, her head buried in her hands. Nothing left of the cocky smile she wore at the party. In the other room, Patricia sagged in her chair, defeated, shoulders caving in. They hadn't just stolen, they had plotted. Together, thinking I'd never know. The officer's tone turned solemn. "This qualifies as felony theft, second degree in Utah. Penalty? Up to 15 years plus fines. They'll also be ordered to pay restitution." He glanced at me. "But most of the money's gone. We can seize assets, cars, jewelry, but it won't cover everything." My throat burned as I nodded. Justice sounded empty when the dream I'd been building was already ash. Dad's voice broke the silence like glass shattering. "I want them prosecuted," he said coldly. "They betrayed my daughter. I won't let this slide." The officer scribbled notes, his voice firm. "We'll move forward with charges. They'll remain here tonight. We'll need your statements." Guilt pricked at me, mixing with something sharper, resolve. Samantha and Patricia had made their choice. Now they'd live with the consequences. As we walked out, Aunt Ellen placed her hand gently on my shoulder, her voice steady but soft. "You did the right thing, Claire." But it didn't feel right. The truth was out, yet it tasted bitter. My money was gone, my family broken beyond repair. All I had left was the fight to make it matter. The weeks after the police station dragged on like years. I sat in Dad's study in Sugar House, surrounded by familiar bookshelves, but the air was thick with finality. He'd called me back, saying we needed to meet with his lawyer. My fingers fidgeted against my lap, every second heavy with the weight of Samantha and Patricia's betrayal. Susan Pierce, Dad's lawyer, entered briskly, her briefcase snapping open. "Claire," she said professionally, "Daniel has made changes to his estate." "He'll explain." Dad sat across from me, exhaustion carved into his face, but his eyes were unwavering. "I've rewritten my will," he said, locking his gaze on mine. "The house, the investments, everything goes to you. Samantha and Patricia get nothing." The words hit me like a stone thrown into still water, rippling outward, impossible to contain. The house, worth over $1 million. The funds from his real estate deals, a fortune. But inheriting it this way felt hollow, bitter. "Are you sure, Dad?" I whispered. His jaw tightened. "They stole your future." "They don't deserve my trust." Susan handed me the revised will, crisp pages heavy with finality. My name, alone, stood as sole beneficiary. The weight pressed into me, not just wealth, but the collapse of any chance at reconciliation. Susan adjusted her glasses. "Both Samantha and Patricia have been charged with felony theft, second degree. Each sentenced to 36 months probation. They're also ordered to pay restitution, $200,000 to you, Claire, plus fines of $8,000 each." My stomach twisted. Restitution sounded fair, but with only $10,000 left in their accounts, it was little more than a cruel joke. Aunt Ellen, calm but unyielding, broke the silence. "Then we seize what's left. Every bag, every watch, every piece of jewelry. They don't get to strut around with trophies bought from your dreams." Her words cut through me like a blade. sharp but true. Samantha tried to fix it, Aunt Ellen said, her arms crossed tight, voice sharp. She sold her Mercedes, barely a year old, and dumped half her designer closet, handbags, jewelry, even that Rolex from Milan. All together, $40,000, $40,000. My chest caved. The math didn't work. It barely scratched the surface of what she owed. What about Patricia? I asked, bracing for the blow. Aunt Ellen exhaled hard. She's pawning what she can, some jewelry, a handful of collectibles. Maybe another $10,000 at best. $50,000, a pitiful fraction of the $200,000 they'd burned. My mind spun. Even stripped of their luxuries, they couldn't cover the theft. Susan cut in, her tone flat but cutting. The judge issued a restitution plan. They'll pay monthly, tied to their income, but it could take years. Miss a payment, and it's jail, 1 to 3 years. Years. The word echoed like a sentence of its own. Samantha and Patricia, once perched on pedestals, now tethered to debts that would chain them for decades. Dad's voice was low, final. I don't care how long it takes. They made their choices. His words didn't just slam a door. They sealed it. I saw the ache behind his fury. Trust had been ground into dust. Not long after, whispers spread. Samantha and Patricia vanished from Sugar House, unable to endure the neighbors' stares. They crawled into a cramped apartment on the far edge of Salt Lake City, a shadow of the life they'd flaunted. Samantha, who once draped herself in couture, now shuffled between retail shifts and late-night waitressing, probation paperwork always at her back. Patricia, stripped of her queen bee status, took a clerical job, her dignity swallowed by court fines and lawyer bills. Their world, once polished, untouchable, had unraveled into survival. And me? I searched for anger, pity, anything, but there was only emptiness. My money was gone, my family shattered. Aunt Ellen reached for my hand, steady as ever. You're stronger than this, Claire. You'll build something new. Her voice was warm, but it couldn't fill the hollow space inside me. Dad rose, his shoulders squared, his tone like a verdict. This house is yours now. Make it your own. The words echoed as I walked out of his study. The inheritance, the wealth, it was mine, but the cost had been everything else. Months blurred by, softening pain into something duller, but still sharp. I stood in downtown Salt Lake City, staring at the sleek sign above my boutique. Carter's Charm. The windows glimmered in morning sun, showcasing the dresses and accessories I'd spent months curating. The $800,000 Dad had gifted me, meant for a dream, had become reality. Opening a fashion store wasn't just business, it was defiance. It was reclaiming what Betrayal had tried to steal. The past year had been relentless. After Dad rewrote his will, leaving me the house and the funds, I abandoned Chicago. Returning to Utah wasn't easy. Chicago had been my escape from family chaos, but Sugar House was home, and this time, it was truly mine. With Aunt Ellen's quiet strength, we transformed the house into a refuge, a place not haunted by lies but alive with new beginnings. I poured every ounce of myself into the boutique. Lease, renovations, sourcing unique pieces from designers near and far, sleepless nights balancing books, silent fears I'd fail. But customers came. Fashion bloggers raved. By 6 months, we broke even. By 9, we thrived. A magazine crowned us Salt Lake's new gem. For the first time in years, I felt pride that wasn't borrowed or broken. And at home, there was family. Smaller, fragile, but real. Dad, retired now, tended his garden or strolled into my boutique with coffee in hand. It wasn't the family I'd known, but maybe, just maybe, it was the one I needed. His laughter, sharp, almost defiant, echoed through our Sunday dinners, a sound so unfamiliar it unsettled me. Dad would chuckle at Aunt Ellen's travel tales or her playful jabs at his dreadful tie collection, but beneath the humor lingered scars we couldn't ignore. The silence after every laugh reminded us of the betrayal that had ripped our family apart. Samantha and Patricia's shadows clung to us like ghosts, and though we sat together, A part of me always braced for their names to resurface, dragging the pain back into the room. I rarely heard from them anymore. The court's demand was clear: repay the $200,000 they had stolen from me. But what trickled in was pitiful. Samantha hawked her Mercedes, pawned her handbags, and sold the Rolex she once flaunted like a trophy, only to scrape together pennies against the mountain of debt. Patricia, stripped of her polished image, relied on a meager clerical job. They lived on the outskirts of the city now, in near anonymity, shadows of the women they once paraded themselves to be. I didn't hate them, but I couldn't forgive them either. The chasm they'd carved between us was too wide to cross. One evening, locking up my boutique, I lingered at the counter, sketchbook open, hands trembling as I drafted designs for a new clothing line. Outside, the hum of Salt Lake City felt strangely comforting, a reminder that life pulsed forward even when trust collapsed. My thoughts, however, circled back to the money, the gift of $800,000 that had ignited my dream, and the poisoned $200,000 that had almost destroyed it. Every dollar was a symbol of love, of betrayal, of survival. Samantha and Patricia's greed hadn't just drained accounts, it had shattered bonds, scorched stability, and burned away the illusion of family. Yet, in that devastation, I uncovered something sharper than grief: truth. Facing it meant acknowledging the ugliest parts: that my sister and stepmother had chosen themselves over us, that their ambition had rotted into something selfish and cruel. But it also meant seeing what endured: Dad's resilience, Aunt Ellen's unwavering support, and my own determination to rise from the wreckage. That honesty, raw, jagged, and painful, had become our glue. It held us steady through nights of doubt, through the endless grind of building a business from ashes, through every moment I thought I'd collapse under the weight of betrayal. As I twisted the boutique's key in the lock, I paused, staring at Salt Lake City's skyline. The mountains framed the glittering lights like a silent witness to everything we had lost and rebuilt. This was my home now, my future. Proof that while greed can devastate, only truth endures. And I had chosen to build my life on that foundation, no matter the cost.